Now that we understand objects a little bit more, let's look into an application of creating our own object and overloading a function. We've already done this by using Python's built-in init method, but we can do that with other functions such as addition, right? If we wanted to add two objects that we've created, we can actually overwrite the addition sign to do what we want it to do. So let's jump right in. We're going to start by creating an object of a complex number, okay? And what each instance of this object will represent a complex number. What is a complex number? If you don't know, let's go to Wikipedia, and really it's a number that has two parts, a real part and an imaginary part. So we write it a plus bi, and a is just any real number, and b is a number multiplied by I, which is the square root of -1, okay? So the square root of -1 is assigned the value of I, so it's going to be a plus bi, okay? So any complex number has a real part and an imaginary part. That's really all you need to know for the context of this. And when you add two complex numbers together, you do the real part plus the real part and the imaginary part plus the imaginary part, okay? So let's get right into it. We have our class complex number. Let's create our initialization class, init self, and we're going to send in a real part and an imaginary part, okay? We're going to say self.real equals real, self.imaginary equals imaginary. And there you go. We just created our initialization method for a complex number. So we can say C1 equals complex number, and we'll say it's going to be 1 plus 2i. Then we'll say print C1.real, C1.imaginary. Okay? So let's run it, and we should get 1 and 2, right? So this 1 is going to be our real part, so it's going to be the a in this a plus bi. And 2 is going to be the b, the imaginary part in the a plus bi, okay? So now, what if we wanted to take two complex numbers that we define? Let's say we define another one, C2 equals complex number of 2 and 5, okay? And we wanted to add those two numbers together, okay? These two complex numbers, which means we have to add 1 and 2, and then 2 and 5. Well, we use Python's built-in method, add, okay? Self and other. You can name this whatever you want, but this is going to be the other number you'll be adding, okay? So when we define C3 equals to C1 plus C2, C2 will be the other in this scenario, okay? So we're going to create new real equals self.real plus other.real. New imaginary equals self.imaginary plus other.imaginary. Now we're going to return a complex number instance, okay? So we're going to return an instance of our complex number where the real part is the new real, and let's be more explicit in our definition. Real and imaginary equals new imaginary, okay? So what we're doing is sending it, so C1 has a method called add, which when we do C1 plus C2, we're going to add self, so it's going to be C1.real plus other.real, which will be C2, and then self.imaginary plus other.imaginary. And this method will return, so when we do equals, it's going to save the value in the C3, so it's going to return a new complex number instance where the real part is new real, which is the adding the two real parts will be 1 and 2, and the two imaginary parts, which is 2 and 5. So if we now change this to C3, we should have an output of 3 and 7. And that's exactly what we have, okay? So I hope this makes sense to you. Try not to worry too much about understanding complex numbers as much as understanding why this works and how complex numbers are added in the context of this object. Okay, so it could be any sort of thing, but you can override add and return any sort of value you want if you wanted to add two instances of your object. Okay, thank you.